Hey guys, my next few videos are going to be on section 8.3, and in this section we're going to test the difference between means for dependent samples. So I'll have a video showing you formal steps of a t-test to look at that mean difference in paired data, some technology steps for carrying out that t-test, and some technology steps for getting a confidence interval to estimate the mean of the difference for a population of paired data. And then you should be able to do these 8 homework problems for next Wednesday. All right, so I'm going to move up to pages 12 and 13 for this. Okay, so section 8.3, first objective, we would like to show you here how to perform a t-test for the mean of the difference in a population of paired data. All right, so if we look at the notes that we have prepared for you, the main difference between working with paired data versus independent samples is that we're going to have to go ahead and take the difference right here, the difference between each of the pairs of values. Because I'm not going to be interested in analyzing the independent samples. Instead, when the samples are dependent, we're going to see how much the two values for each pair differ. So we're going to get those lowercase values of d for each pair, and then we're going to average those values, and we're going to use that average as an estimate of the mean difference, and we're going to see if that allows us to just going to start this over. All right, so objective number 1, we see that we're going to want to perform a t-test of the mean of a difference for a population of paired data. And when we do so, what we have to do when we have paired data is, let me just give you some context. As I may have mentioned when we were in a Google meeting, if we have a swim team who wonders if they can swim faster with a swim cap on versus without one on, what we would do is for each swimmer, make them swim with the cap, make them the same swimmers swim without the cap, and then we'd have 2 dependent samples. We'd have a pair of times that it took them to swim a certain race, like the, 100-meter freestyle or something. And what I would do with each one of those pairs of data is right here. I'd have to calculate a difference between each pair of values. And what I'm going to do in this t-test is use those differences as the data that I shall analyze. Okay, so in a test, we have conditions that have to be met. So condition number 1 is we have randomly selected samples. They're now going to be paired or dependent. And the population is normal, or the number of pairs is at least 30. Assuming these conditions are met, we can run a t-test. We're back to having just n-1 degrees of freedom, and we'd be able to find a p-value in the tail of a t-distribution. Some symbols that are important in the section. Symbols are important. When we change to a use of different symbols, we're going to have some notation that you guys need to be comfortable with. So we're just going to use lowercase n for how many pairs of data there are, d for the difference for each pair of values, mu sub d for the hypothesized mean of the difference for paired data in the population. You're going to see that this hypothesized mean of the difference is usually 0. So in that swimming example, we would assume no difference with and without the cap, and we'd be running a t-test to see if the difference is significantly less or greater or not equal to 0. We'll use d bar for the average value of those pairs of differences, and s sub d as the standard deviation. Okay, this standard deviation formula you may have seen as early as chapter 2. We're going to rely on technology to get us the mean and the standard deviation. Okay, so the t-test is going to be run where, whoops, looks like I have the same slides duplicated at the bottom as the top. Okay, moving to page 13. Those formal steps now. So I've got 9 listed out, in the same as the last section, with the exception now we're going to tweak the steps, the 9 steps, to account for the fact that we have paired data. So in step 1, we'll verify our conditions. In step 2, we'll write the hypotheses. In step 3, we will specify the alpha level. In step 4, the degrees of freedom. Step 5 is where we have to use our calculators so that we can get the D bar and the S sub D calculated out. And step 6, we'll calculate the test statistic using the equation here, right? Each section is going to have different equations that when we work stuff out, will follow different formulas. So the t-test equation looks like that in this section. Then we'll get a calculated p-value using TCDF for that tail area. We'll make a decision as usual, reject H if the p-value is less than or equal to the alpha level, and then we'll interpret the decision in the context of the original claim. Okay, so we have a model problem here on the right for you. And the context is a manufacturer, shoe manufacturer, claims that athletes can increase their vertical jump heights using the manufacturer's training shoes. So the vertical jump heights of 8 randomly selected athletes are measured, and then after they wear those shoes for a period of 8 months, their jump heights are measured again. So now we want to know if the vertical jump heights are normally distributed, is there enough evidence to support that manufacturer's claim? Okay, so remember as I speak, I'm going to write on my iPad. If this goes too fast for you, feel free to just follow along and listen, or know that these notes are also posted without any audio if you prefer just to take your time looking at posted notes. Okay, so starting that formal 9-step process, we've got random and dependent samples. We've got sigma d unknown, and an assumption that the population of differences in jump heights is normal. Okay. Step 2, pair of hypotheses. So here's where we have to understand that when we're looking at a difference after wearing the shoes, if that manufacturer is claiming that their jump heights should be higher, then that's a mu sub d is greater than 0. I expect the new jump heights to be higher than the old jump heights. So the claim is a one-sided greater than claim. And then here I'll just write mu sub d less than or equal to 0. Step 3. Oops. Step 3 is to put in the alpha level for the test. It's 0.10. Step 4, the degrees of freedom. Back to the simple scenario of there are 8 pairs of values minus 1, so we'll have 7 degrees of freedom. All right, so here's where the deal is, where there's a bit of tedious work here. Athlete and then difference. And we have to define the difference that we're doing. So I'm going to do new minus old. So I have to take those 8 athletes and I have to get, for every athlete, the difference in their pair of values. This is usually pretty simple. I can do mental math. If athlete number 1 had 26 after wearing the new shoes and 24 before, their jump height difference is 2. Athlete number 2 is 25 and then 22, that's 3. Athlete number 3 is the same, so the difference is 0. Difference of 1. Now here's where you have to be careful. On athlete 5, they actually had a less jump height after those new shoes, so negatives could appear in this sample set of pairs, differences between the pairs. Okay, So we have those 8 values. Now, in order to get the test statistic, I'm going to stick these guys in list 1. Okay, just one list of differences. And out of list 1, I'm going to run that one veristats command. And that's going to tell me the average difference is 1.75, and the standard deviation for those differences 2.12.